Welcome back to Realeconomy. Great to have you with us. So the good news, after a deep recession, Europe's economy is back on track for growth in 2022 and beyond. But before we start celebrating, the EU's economic forecast sees three main threats to recovery: the huge surge in COVID cases, rising energy prices, and supply chain bottlenecks. Coming up, we're in Italy, where we see at first hand how those delays and shortages are putting production at risk. And we ask the OECD's chief economist if we have any reason for Christmas cheer. But first, here's your crash course on what lies ahead for the economy. Europe's economy is on track to grow faster than expected, but the road to recovery is uncertain. GDP is expected to reach 5% by the end of 2021 in both the EU as a whole and the Eurozone area. That's above the previous forecast of 4.8%. Moving into 2022, it's projected to grow by 4.3%, then a more moderate 2.5% for the EU and 2.4% for the Eurozone for 2023, although this growth is uneven across the EU. But, and it's a big but, it all depends on how the COVID-19 pandemic develops. The surge in cases has shaken the markets, and new government restrictions could impact economic activity, while businesses risk being hit by shortages and supply chain disruptions. Italy has a growth forecast of 6.2%, but those supply chain issues could be putting its recovery at risk. Our reporter Cyril Fornery got on his bike to visit manufacturing companies in Europe's industrial heartland in the north of Italy.
With the desire for fresh air, a major post-COVID-19 trend is cycling. Another trend is to relocate production to Europe. That's the plan of this company here in Lombardy, which is facing supply chain issues. Attila is one of Italy's largest bicycle manufacturers. It produces high-end electric bikes at this factory. The company has seen a 60% increase in orders since the COVID crisis, but is struggling to meet that demand as lead times for delivering components have soared.
We increased production on average by 36% in 2020, and in 2021 we should see around 10 or 15% growth. It could have been higher in 2021, but the lack of components has reduced the potential for expansion.
Investing in eco-friendly transport is a top priority of the European Recovery Plan. Attila hopes to benefit by relocating part of its activities from Turkey, but this won't solve all of their supply chain problems.
If we repatriate the welding or painting but we are missing aluminium rods or carbon fibre, materials for battery cells or steel that is not produced in Europe, then we're only moving the problem. So, in my opinion, we need to think at the political and European level. The change cannot be limited to one part of the chain, but has to start at the very beginning, the raw materials.
The shortages have raised fears of accelerating inflation in Italy. It's investing more than any other EU country, a total of €235 billion over 5 years, including €191.5 billion from the EU's Recovery Fund. Italy received the first €25 billion tranche of that in August. In Turin, we discover a different industry, but there's the same desire to invest in the future. Argo Tech produces space microsatellites, one of which is currently being used in NASA's asteroid deflection project, DART. To meet the booming demand of the space economy, the company intends to double its workforce, but says more needs to be done to retain young talent.
The economy, particularly the Italian economy, as we can see from the statistics, analysis and projections, is undergoing a kind of renaissance. The important thing in this case is to think about the future, and thinking about the future means investing. What we want to do with the government is to have the capacity to bring back the young people who, for certain reasons, leave the country to do research and development abroad.
Creating a more attractive business environment is one of the top priorities of the European Recovery Plan, along with green mobility, clean energy and digitalisation.
With the rapid reopening of the economy, those supply chain bottlenecks plus energy price increases have pushed up inflation. In the Eurozone at the end of 2020, it was at minus 0.3%. That rose to 2.8% in quarter 3 of 2021. and it's set to peak at 2.4% in 2022 and 2.6% for the EU. I've come to speak to the chief economist for the OECD to get a global perspective on Europe's economic outlook. Laurence Brun, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you.
We've seen this huge rise in the number of coronavirus cases. What does that mean for Europe's recovery?
So the European recovery is well underway, but it's obviously adding uncertainty to this outlook.
How does that compare with the picture that you at the OECD see globally?
The European economies are doing quite well when compared with all countries. It's been very interesting to watch how different countries have protected their people. In Europe, what governments have been doing is to pay firms to keep people in jobs. So when you reopen the economy, you immediately start working again. In the US, it's quite different. Governments have been sending checks to households, so they cash in the money, but they don't have a job any longer. So what we're observing now is employment has nearly recovered in Europe, and it's still lagging behind in the US.
How concerned are you about the new variant and the implications of that for the economy?
I think you can look at it in two ways. Either so this would slightly delay the recovery, and it would increase tension on the supply chain, or it's a more difficult variant, and that could really create a downturn in the recovery and surprisingly enough, a fall in prices if that was to happen.
How concerned are you about this current spike in inflation?
If we're to solve the health situation by the summer and things become normal, then we're quite confident that the supply tensions will start fading and inflation will gradually diminish. If we don't manage to get the health situation in check and tensions continue well into 22, 23, then we will be more concerned about this inflation pressure lasting longer.
Do we have reason for Christmas cheer?
Of course, we have reason for Christmas to cheer. First, we have, when you think about it, a year ago, we were just told that a vaccine had been found in like 9 months. Usually it takes 10 years to find a vaccine. This crisis has managed protecting as much as possible people and firms, and there's never been as much awareness of the climate issue. So I think we're on a good track.
On the good track. Laurence Brun, thank you so much for being with us here on Real Economy.
Thank you.